Picture this. You're walking down the bustling streets of ancient Rome, circa 100 AD. The air is thick with smoke, sizzling oil, and mouth-watering aromas that would make your stomach growl louder than a lion in the Colosseum. Street vendors are shouting in Latin, hawking their wares from tiny shops called tabernae, while customers jostle for position at steaming food stalls called thermopolia. You hear the clatter of clay pots and the rhythmic pounding of mortars grinding spices. This isn't just any ordinary day in the Eternal City. This is the world's first fast food revolution, happening over 2,000 years ago. Most Romans lived in cramped apartment buildings called insulae, with no kitchens. Imagine living in a New York studio apartment, but with zero cooking facilities and a constant fire hazard from charcoal braziers. So just like modern city dwellers grabbing lunch from food trucks, Romans relied on street food for their daily sustenance. But what exactly were they eating? Today, I'm taking you on a culinary time machine back to ancient Rome to discover 12 incredible street foods that kept the empire fed. You'll be amazed at how many of these ancient fast foods have direct descendants on your dinner plate today. From the world's first energy drinks to portable pastries that would make a croissant jealous, we're about to uncover the surprisingly sophisticated, and sometimes downright bizarre, world of Roman street cuisine. And you better have a tough stomach, because the very last food in this video is absolutely disgusting and might well make you vomit. Believe me, it's totally gross. But the Romans did eat this particular food as something of a mid-afternoon snack. By the end of this video, you'll never look at your morning coffee or evening pizza the same way again. So grab your toga and let's feast like the Romans. 1. Panis quadratus, square bread. Let's start with the absolute foundation of Roman street food, panis quadratus, or square bread. Imagine walking up to a Roman bakery and seeing loaves that look like they were designed by an ancient architect. These weren't your fluffy Wonder Bread slices. Roman bakers created round loaves, scored with deep crosshatches that divided each loaf into 8 wedge-shaped pieces, making them look remarkably like pizza slices before pizza was even invented. The texture was dense and chewy, made from coarse flour that the poor received as part of their daily grain ration called the annona. Think of it as the ancient equivalent of artisanal sourdough, but with a much more practical purpose. These scored divisions made it easy to break off portions to share or sell individually. Street vendors would stack these golden brown wheels high on wooden counters, and customers could buy individual segments for a few copper coins. The closest modern equivalent? That crusty bread you grab from Panera or your local bakery. But imagine it with the structural integrity of a medieval shield. Romans took their bread seriously. It was literally the staff of life that kept the empire running. 2. Libum, honey cheesecake. Now here's where Roman street food gets unexpectedly sophisticated. Libum was originally a sacrificial cake offered to household spirits, but street vendors quickly realized this honey-sweetened cheesecake was too good to reserve just for the gods. Picture a dense, ricotta-like cheese mixed with eggs and wheat flour, then drizzled with golden honey and baked until it achieved a beautiful amber crust. These small, bread-like cakes were made of wheat flour and cheese and had a texture somewhere between modern cheesecake and a dense pound cake. Street vendors would sell them warm from portable ovens, and the aroma of honey and baked cheese would waft through the Roman streets like an ancient version of a Cinnabon kiosk. The modern equivalent is obvious: New York cheesecake. But imagine it less creamy, more substantial, and sweetened exclusively with honey instead of refined sugar. Romans essentially invented the concept of grabbing a slice of cheesecake as a street snack, proving that some culinary instincts are truly timeless. Third, placenta, layered honey pastry. Don't let the name fool you. Placenta was a popular layered pastry known for its delicate texture and sweet flavor, made with thin sheets of wheat flour dough layered with a mixture of soft, fresh cheese and honey. This was the ancient Roman answer to filo pastry, but centuries before, the Greeks perfected baklava. Imagine a Roman pastry chef carefully rolling out paper-thin sheets of dough, then layering them with creamy fresh cheese and drizzling each layer with amber honey. Bakers frequently sold slices, not only the whole cake, making this the perfect grab-and-go treat for busy Romans on the move. The texture would have been simultaneously crispy and creamy, with the honey providing natural preservation, ancient food science at its finest. The closest modern equivalent would be a cross between baklava and a cheese Danish, but with the sophisticated layering technique of a French millefeuille. Romans were creating Instagram-worthy pastries before Instagram was even a fever dream. 4. Lucanica, spiced sausages. Sausages were common dishes in ancient Rome, and Lucanica was the street food king of portable protein. These weren't your basic hot dogs. Imagine artisanal sausages packed with exotic spices like black pepper, worth its weight in gold, coriander, bay leaves, and even pine nuts for crunch. Roman sausage makers were like ancient charcutiers, stuffing natural casings with seasoned pork, beef, or even fish, depending on what was available and affordable. Street vendors would grill them over charcoal braziers, and the sizzling, popping sounds would create a symphony of savory anticipation that could be heard blocks away. The closest modern equivalent? Think of those gourmet bratwurst you get at German Christmas markets, or the sophisticated sausages at modern gastropubs. Romans understood that portable protein needed to be flavorful enough to eat without elaborate accompaniments. They basically invented the concept of the gourmet hot dog stand. 5. Mulsum, honeyed wine. Here's where Roman street beverages get interesting. Mulsum was a freshly made mixture of wine and honey that served as both refreshment and mild intoxicant. Imagine walking up to a Roman beverage cart and ordering what amounts to an ancient energy drink with alcohol content. Vendors would mix local wine with honey to create a drink that was simultaneously sweet, fortifying, and mildly alcoholic. Perfect for laborers who needed both calories and liquid courage to get through their day. The honey provided natural sugars for energy, while the wine offered a mild buzz and helped kill any harmful bacteria in questionable water supplies. The modern equivalent would be like ordering a craft beer cocktail or a wine-based spritzer at a trendy gastropub. But imagine it being socially acceptable to drink this at 10 a.m. while running errands. Romans had figured out the perfect workday beverage centuries before the first espresso machine was invented. 6. Posca, vinegar water. Now here's the Roman drink that would make modern health influencers go absolutely wild. Posca was a vinegar-based wonder drink that was essentially the ancient equivalent of a sports drink. Romans would mix wine vinegar with water and sometimes add herbs or honey to create a tart, refreshing beverage that was both hydrating and antiseptic. This wasn't just for common soldiers and laborers. Even wealthy Romans would drink Posca as a health tonic. The acetic acid in vinegar helped preserve the drink, killed harmful bacteria, and provided a sharp, wake-you-up flavor that was perfect for hot Mediterranean days. The closest modern equivalent? Apple cider vinegar wellness shots. Romans were essentially drinking kombucha's ancient ancestor, proving that trendy health drinks aren't actually new. They're just remarkably old ideas with better marketing. 7. Gustatio dishes, appetizer plates. Gustatio was the first part of a Roman banquet and included appetizers served with wine and mulsum, but street vendors created portable versions of these sophisticated starter plates. Picture ancient Roman tapas, small dishes featuring olives, hard-boiled eggs, fresh cheese, seasonal fruits, and nuts arranged on wooden platters or wrapped in large leaves for takeaway. These weren't just random snacks thrown together. Roman street vendors understood food pairing and would combine salty olives with sweet, fresh cheese or bitter herbs with honey-drizzled nuts. They were creating balanced flavor profiles that would make modern gastropub chefs nod in approval. The modern equivalent is obvious. Mediterranean mezzi plates or Spanish tapas. Romans invented the concept of small plates designed for sharing and snacking, proving that some culinary concepts are so perfect they've survived virtually unchanged for over 2 millennia. Quet. Focaccia. Primitiva. Early flatbread. Long before Italian nonnas were lovingly crafting focaccia in Liguria, Roman bakers were creating primitive versions of this beloved flatbread. Roman street vendors would take basic bread dough, press it flat, drizzle it with olive oil, and sprinkle it with coarse salt and whatever herbs were available. Perhaps rosemary, thyme, or oregano. The result was a portable, flavorful bread that could serve as both a meal and an edible plate for other foods. Vendors would often top it with cheese, olives, or even thin slices of meat, creating what might be considered the world's first open-faced sandwiches. The modern equivalent is exactly what you'd expect: focaccia, but also pizza bianca, naan bread, or even artisanal flatbreads at modern Mediterranean restaurants. Romans figured out that simple ingredients treated with respect could create something absolutely delicious and completely portable. 9. Ientaculum porridge, breakfast mush. Roman breakfast food was practical above all else. Ientaculum was typically a thick porridge made from whatever grains were available: wheat, barley, oats, or even millet. Street vendors would prepare huge pots of this nutritious mush and serve it warm in clay bowls, often sweetened with honey or enhanced with dried fruits and nuts. This wasn't glamorous food, but it was incredibly effective fuel. Think of it as ancient oatmeal, but heartier and more diverse in its grain composition. Vendors might add goat's milk, sheep's cheese, or even a splash of wine to make it more appealing to different customers. The modern equivalent? Your morning oatmeal, quinoa breakfast bowls, or even cream of wheat. Romans understood that starting the day with complex carbohydrates and protein would provide sustained energy. They just didn't have fancy marketing terms for slow-release energy and complete proteins. 10th. Garum-seasoned snacks, fish sauce treats. Garum and its cousin liquamen were kinds of fish sauce made from fermented fish guts and featured in a lot of dishes, both sweet and savory. Roman street vendors would use this umami-rich condiment to season everything from roasted nuts to grilled vegetables to simple bread. Imagine walking up to a Roman snack cart and getting a handful of roasted chickpeas that had been tossed with garum, olive oil, and herbs. The result would be intensely savory, with a depth of flavor that would make modern chefs weep with envy. Garum provided that mysterious fifth taste that makes food irresistibly addictive. The modern equivalent: think of how Asian street food uses fish sauce, or how modern chefs use Worcestershire sauce or anchovy paste to add depth to dishes. Romans had discovered umami centuries before Japanese scientists gave it a name, and they used it to make even the simplest street snacks absolutely crave-worthy. 11th, seasonal fruit plates. Fresh produce. Roman street vendors were masters of seasonality long before it became a trendy culinary movement. Depending on the time of year, you might find vendors selling perfectly ripe figs, drizzled with honey, fresh grapes still cool from morning dew, or sliced apples sprinkled with imported spices. Romans usually ate eggs and fruit as appetizers, so street vendors would often create combination plates featuring hard-boiled eggs alongside whatever fruit was in season. They understood that natural sugars provided quick energy, while the protein from eggs offered staying power. The modern equivalent is everywhere. Fruit cups from convenient stores, acai bowls from health food cafes, or even the fruit salads from your local deli. Romans proved that sometimes the best street food is just really good produce, treated with respect and maybe a drizzle of local honey. 12th, glyers, roasted dormice. Now here's where Roman street food gets truly wild, and I mean that literally. Dormice, known as glyers in Latin, were consumed by ancient Romans as snacks, and if you think that sounds bizarre, just wait until you hear how they prepared them. Romans didn't just catch wild dormice. They farmed them in special terracotta containers called gliraria, feeding them walnuts, chestnuts, and acorns to fatten them up. Picture tiny Roman hamster farms, but with a much more culinary endpoint. These weren't your typical house mice. Edible dormice were more like small squirrels, silver gray with bushy tails and about 14 centimeters long. The preparation was surprisingly sophisticated. Romans would stuff the fattened dormice with rich fillings and coat them with sweet and savory glazes before roasting them. Street vendors would roast them over charcoal fires until their skin became crispy and golden, creating what must have been one of history's most unusual portable snacks. Dormice were so popular that they were actually banned by Roman sumptuary laws designed to curb the excesses of the wealthy. Imagine a food being so deliciously addictive that the government had to step in and regulate it. The closest modern equivalent? This one's tricky. But think of how some cultures today enjoy roasted guinea pig, rabbit, or even upscale restaurants serving unusual proteins like quail or squab. Romans proved that with the right preparation, almost any protein could become a gourmet street snack. They just happened to choose one that would make modern animal lovers absolutely horrified. Roman street food legacy. As we've traveled through the bustling markets and steaming food stalls of ancient Rome, one thing becomes crystal clear. Human cravings haven't changed much in 2,000 years. Romans wanted the same things we want today. Convenient food that tastes amazing, drinks that provide both refreshment and a little excitement, and snacks that make ordinary moments feel a bit more special. What's remarkable is how sophisticated Roman street food actually was. These weren't primitive people gnawing on random scraps. They were urban dwellers with refined palates who understood flavor combinations, food safety, and the economics of feeding a massive city. They invented concepts we still use today: the grab-and-go breakfast, the afternoon energy drink, the shareable appetizer plate, and even the concept of premium street beverages. The next time you grab a coffee and pastry on your way to work, order tapas with friends, or pick up a gourmet sausage from a food truck. Remember that you're participating in culinary traditions that stretch back to the very foundations of Western civilization. Romans didn't just build roads and aqueducts. They built the template for urban food culture that we're still following today. Those ancient food vendors, shouting their wares in Latin from their tiny tabernae shops, were the ancestors of every food truck, corner deli, and fast casual restaurant you've ever loved. They proved that great food doesn't require fancy dining rooms or elaborate service. Sometimes all you need is fresh ingredients, skilled hands, and hungry customers rushing through the eternal city. If you enjoyed this culinary journey through ancient Rome, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into history's most fascinating food cultures. And let me know in the comments, which of these Roman street foods would you be most excited to try? Now here's another video that looks at 15 superfoods which the Romans ate but have now gone extinct. Do you think you can find them? Watch the video and let us know in the comments if you know where you can find these lost superfoods. You could make a ton of money if you do know where they are. Happy hunting!